Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never meant for the joke to land like that. We were at a dinner party, surrounded by laughter, wine glasses clinking, and the kind of shallow banter that always seems harmless until it isn't. My husband, Mark, sat beside me, his calm smile barely hiding the exhaustion of another long week at work. Someone asked how we managed to stay married for 12 years, and before I could think, I laughed and said, maybe it's time to swap him for a newer model. The room chuckled. I expected Mark to roll his eyes or make one of his dry comebacks. Instead, he just looked at me for a long moment, then said softly, maybe you should. I'd want you to be happy. The laughter stopped instantly. You could almost hear the fork drop against the plate. My stomach twisted. I tried to play it off, smiling too wide, pretending it was all in good humor. But the warmth that usually sat between us had vanished. The rest of the evening blurred. People changed topics, someone poured more wine, and I laughed a little louder than usual, trying to bury the shame clawing at my chest. When we got home, Mark didn't say much. He hung his jacket on the hook, loosened his tie, and went straight to the bedroom. I followed, heart thudding, unsure if I should apologize or defend myself. It was just a joke, I said finally, hovering near the door. He nodded, not looking at me. Yeah, just a joke. But his tone wasn't angry. It was distant, almost hollow. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I turned, I could feel the gap between us. He used to reach out, pull me close without a word. This time he stayed still, his breathing steady, like a man who had already decided something I didn't know yet. The next morning, Mark woke early. I found him in the kitchen, pouring coffee, scrolling through his phone. He looked different. Lighter somehow. You okay? Yes. He smiled faintly. Yeah. I actually slept well. I tried to smile back, but something about his calmness made me uneasy. At work, my phone buzzed with messages from friends who had been at the dinner. Girl, that was savage. You two are hilarious. But one message stood out. From Jessica, my oldest friend. I think you hurt him last night. He looked really sad after you said that. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I typed a quick reply. He's fine. We always joke like that. But my hands trembled as I hit send. That evening, when Mark came home, he was unusually quiet again. We ate dinner almost in silence. Halfway through, he looked up and said, I'm going to visit my brother next weekend. That's fine, I said, pretending it didn't bother me. He rarely traveled without me, but I wasn't going to show my insecurity. He nodded. Good. I need some space. That word, space, hung in the air like a verdict. For the next few days, he barely spoke more than necessary. He was polite, kind even, but detached. Every act of normalcy, pouring my coffee, asking about my day, felt rehearsed, mechanical. I began to realize how much of our connection had relied on his warmth. Without it, the house felt like a museum of old laughter. The night before he left, I found him packing a small suitcase. Mark, I began. Are we okay? He zipped the bag and met my eyes. Depends on what you mean by okay. I mean, are you angry about what I said? He sighed. No, I'm just thinking about how many times you've made jokes like that. Maybe I never paid attention before. I opened my mouth to protest, but the words didn't come. 'Cause he was right. Somewhere along the years, teasing had become my defense mechanism, a way to mask my insecurities with humor. He continued. I kept telling myself you didn't mean it. But last night, for the first time, I wondered if you did. There it was, the quiet pain I had never intended to cause. After he left for his brother's place the next morning, the silence in the house felt heavier than ever. I tried distracting myself, cleaning, calling friends, watching shows, but everything reminded me of him. By the second night, I found myself rereading old messages he'd sent years ago. Simple things like, pick you up at 6, or, you looked beautiful tonight. Back then I'd barely noticed them. Now they felt like relics from a world I had carelessly broken. Mark stayed at his brother's for 5 days. We texted once or twice. Brief, polite exchanges. No fights, no apologies. Just empty politeness. When he finally came home, I expected a confrontation. Instead, he walked in, hugged me lightly and said, "You look tired." I wanted to cry at the gentleness of it. I wanted him to yell, to release something, anything. But he didn't. He just carried his bag upstairs and unpacked quietly, humming to himself like nothing was wrong. For a few days, things seemed normal again. We had dinner together, watched a movie, even laughed once or twice. But the laughter felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter at the slightest touch. The following weekend, we were invited to another small get-together, some of Mark's colleagues and their partners. I was nervous but wanted to show everyone that we were fine, that I hadn't ruined everything with one careless joke. The evening started well enough. People chatted about work, vacations, and house renovations. Mark seemed relaxed, even cheerful. I felt myself unclench a little. Maybe this was the start of healing. Then someone, I think it was his co-worker's wife, teased Mark about how calm and patient he always was. "You're too good, Mark. I'd lose my mind if my husband ever forgot our anniversary like you did last year," she laughed. Mark chuckled. "Oh, I've learned patience the hard way." The group laughed politely. Then one of the men turned to me and said, "I remember your joke from last time, the swap your husband one. That was hilarious. Got any new ones tonight?" The table's attention shifted to me. My throat went dry. I tried to laugh it off, but Mark spoke before I could. He said, "Actually, I do have one." Everyone looked at him, surprised. Mark wasn't the type to seek attention. He smiled, calm and pleasant, like he was about to tell a harmless story. He looked at me and said, "You know, Emma joked about swapping me for a newer model a while ago. I told her she could if it made her happy. What I didn't say is..." He paused, glancing around the table, his voice steady. If a man truly loves his wife, he never jokes about replacing her. Because love isn't a competition. But if a woman jokes about replacing her husband, maybe she's already forgotten he's not a model. He's the one who built the life she's standing on. The room went completely silent. No awkward coughs, no shifting chairs. Just silence. Mark didn't sound cruel. He didn't raise his voice. He said it with such calm truth that it hurt more than any argument ever could. I felt my face flush hot. My smile faltered. The air in the room thickened, and I could feel every heartbeat echoing in my ears. Someone tried to change the subject, asking about dessert, but the energy had shifted. Every glance felt like pity, not for him but for me. When we got home, I sat in the car for a moment, staring out the window. Mark was already inside, hanging his coat, moving through the house like he'd accepted something I still hadn't understood. I followed him into the living room. "That was cruel," I said quietly. He looked up, surprised. "Cruel? I only said the truth. You embarrassed me." He sighed, setting down his phone. "Emma, I didn't embarrass you. I reminded you that words matter, especially when they come from someone you love." He walked past me toward the kitchen, his calm voice cutting through the stillness. "You wanted a reaction the first time. You finally got one." I sat there for a long time, the echo of his words bouncing around the room. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't humiliated me. He had simply reflected back the weight of my own carelessness. The next morning he left early for work. I found a note on the counter beside my coffee mug. It read, "Don't worry. I'm not leaving. I just needed you to see me again." I stood there for several minutes, staring at his handwriting. A lump formed in my throat. For the first time, I understood what his silence had been saying all along. Not anger, not resentment, but disappointment. That night, I waited for him to come home. When he did, I didn't try to make jokes or small talk, or hide behind sarcasm. I simply said, "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." He looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "Thank you." It was quiet for a few moments before he added softly, "Just don't make me invisible again." And somehow that single sentence, gentle, steady, and painfully honest, became the beginning of something new between us. Since that night, I've learned that jokes aren't always harmless. Sometimes they're confessions wearing humor as a disguise. And sometimes, it takes the silence after a truth to remind you who's really standing beside you.